going to do is have the CIP people come up and talk on what they have to say tonight before we go into all the other, and if they want to leave there, they'll be able to leave. So the first one for the CIP will have facilities. Facilities.
Good evening. Mike Elder, once again, your Director of Facilities. And we have several CIP projects that have been identified through our facilities condition assessment and based on our experience with the equipment that we're trying to maintain. And the first one that we have is the highway shop fire alarm. The highway shop fire alarm is original to when the building was built in the late 80s, early 90s. And as a result, there's several things that it doesn't have. And that is, it doesn't have all of the new requirements to meet the ADA. It has the sound, but it doesn't have the lights. So that's one of the things that we have to do. It's also gotten to the age where we can't buy parts for it anymore. So it is basically at the end of its life. We have to replace it with a complete system that's UL approved. So it's not one of these where we can buy compatible parts and put it together and kind of have a hybrid, because it's not approved by the underwriter's laboratory. So this project is asking for the engineering work and then to do the installation next year.
So moved. Powers.
Okay, next one. The next one is some HVAC equipment for the highway shop area. Once again, these makeup air units are original equipment that were installed when the shop was created. They are actually 3 years beyond its expected useful life. We would like to replace these when they're still working and not have to do it as an emergency type repair. So these bring in fresh outside air, mixes it with recirculated air, and maintains air quality in the shop area. The next project that we've got is the Oran King building automation system upgrade. It is another system that is original to the building, and the building was built in the 70s. It's a pneumatic type system. It doesn't have all of the sensors and controls that modern digital systems have. So if you take a look at it, we have like one master thermostat for each floor. So if people have a meeting in their office and a couple people, that office gets warm, but they don't have a thermostat to circulate the air. So this will get us up to the current level of what people are expecting for air conditioning and comfort levels in the building. It will also allow us to try and maximize the energy efficiency of the equipment that we've got right now. So once again, the engineering costs, the installation costs are included for 2025. The next project that we've got is the Parkview air conditioning systems. Parkview has 8 air conditioning air handler units on the roof, providing air conditioning to the building. They were installed in 2008 when the building was built, so they are now 16 years old. One of the problems that we've got is they use R22. So the equipment is expected to last between 10 and 15 years for the air conditioning compressors. We need to upgrade to the next air conditioning refrigerant that we can get. And maintain the appropriate temperatures for the residents. Okay, the next one, we missed, I believe, did we miss any? Okay, so then the last things that we've got is, I've got several projects that are identified as being short in funding, and this is, we've got these in the project list because it's been a request of the county board for years that when we have capital projects that are expected to go over budget, that you all are identified, the projects are identified for you, and the funding shortage is addressed. Now, these projects, last night, one of you all asked how we manage all of our priorities and everything, and we do juggling. Some of these projects have been delayed because they've been juggled. And what's happened is, when we do the capital plan, we end up doing it about a year in advance of when they would be going out for bid. And in the meantime, inflation and supply chain issues have driven up the costs. Now, we haven't gone out for bid on all but one of these. And the reason we're identifying the additional funds needed is, once again, back to the request that the county board is apprised of the fact that we're expecting to be short on funds. But if we wait until after we go for bidding, then it's about a 2-month process for us to get the additional funding through the committees of jurisdiction, the Personnel and Finance Committee, and then make it onto the county board for approval. And it causes us some issues with contractors in that we basically have to tell them that they have to hold their price for roughly 120 days. And in those 120 days, things can affect the market that could affect their prices, so they will price in what they think they need to protect themselves in the future. So that's why we're bringing forward these, saying we've gone back through with the engineers and everything. We've looked at the estimates that were created when we first submitted the projects. We believe they're going to be short based on market conditions and what we think are going to be the problems. Now, the last one that we've got, the Neenah Human Services boiler replacement, we did go out for bid on that, and it did come in over budget. So we are asking for the additional funds so that we can complete that project. We are looking at ways that we can minimize that cost, but we're still thinking that if we have to go out and get another bid for the contractors, they've already pretty much seen what everybody's bidding, and it'll come back in at roughly the same price. So those are the projects that we've got in the capital plan, and I'll entertain any questions.
I see no one with questions, so thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Next is highway.
Bob Damel, the Highway Commissioner. I'll go through capital projects here. First project we have is County Highway M from State Highway 44 to 91. This section of road is 6.64 miles in length. That Pazer rating, as we talk about condition of pavement on there, is a 5. So it's starting to get in that aged asphalt in there. So that road will be a pulverized and a pave. If you've traveled that road, some of those curves on that road are narrow. Once we pulverize that road, we're going to take opportunity to kind of widen those curves out a little bit, make those curves a little bit safer. This road, the last time this road was paved was in 2008. So it's seen its better days in there. By the time we get to next year, I mean, that'll have 17 years of age on to that. Next slide, there's some photos there of some of the conditions of the pavement in there. Next road, we have County Road E. County Road E is from Oakwood Road to County Road Double F. That section of road we split up in 2 sections. just because of the length of that project. So this half is 3.53 miles long. Once again, the pavement condition in that area is a little bit worse in there. They're in 3 to 4s. Again, we're going to pulverize and pave that. And a lot of you aware of, we've had some drainage issues in that area. We're looking at some possible drain tile. We're going to work in there to alleviate some of those problems. And so hopefully we can take care of that. We moved this project up. We were going to work further out, but we moved this part of this project up to address some of that drainage issues out there. So once again, this project, this road last overlay was in 2007. So when we do that, it'll be 18 years of life on that road. One thing too with this is we did receive some additional funding for this, so that $366,905 is outside funding that we have for this project. The next slide shows some of those areas of condition of the pavement in there. Next we have 2 5-yard dump trucks. That picture on there is the one in the red is actually what it is, a single axle truck. It's a smaller truck. Typically we use those in our townships on some of the smaller roads. The 2 trucks that we're going to replace are 2003s. And if I know some of you went through the tour out by us, those trucks are in bad shape. So these are ones that we've kind of been dragging down the road here, and now we're getting to that point for replacement with those. Next. The next with the winter equipment. So when we purchase those trucks, all it is the cab and the frame and the tires. That's it. There's nothing else with these. So when we go for the winter equipment, that's the box, the plow, the wings, the sanders, the salt brine tanks, like that with those. So we have 5 of them on this. So the two previous single axle 5-yard trucks, those are included with as the 2. The 3 will be tandem trucks that we've previously approved in a budget. So those trucks finally will be arriving, and they'll get that winter equipment on there. So that'll be a total of 5 trucks that will be getting that winter equipment on there. Next. Next is a truck that we use for our sign shop. This truck is basically every day it's out for traffic control with any of our projects on whether it's a state or county system. It'll be replacing a 2013 that has over 160,000 miles on it. This, like I said, this truck is out every single day, and it comes. We have an arrow board on there, so we can put pre-programmed messages when we're out for the safety of the crew. Next one is so this is a highway vacuum trailer. So one thing that we have had issues with is locating utilities. This year has probably been the worst we've seen with locating utilities. It's not Digger's hotline itself, it's the locators that are locating. They're just short-staffed, they're not being able to get to our projects. So this year, we've hit a lot of lines just because of the lack of locating. Typically, these lines that we're hitting are communication lines. But this unit here will help us. Actually, what it is it'll just, it uses a high-pressure washer to cut the soil and vacuum it up. So we can actually pothole down and actually physically see the utilities that are in the ground before we excavate. This is just one that more and more of the county highway departments are going to a unit like this, just because of that simple fact is that crews, for their safety out there, we can identify what's in the ground and the depth before we do any work out on these. And any of these projects that you see out there, this is a standard, they're using a larger scale unit when they do this, but, so, the next slide. Next one here is, so when we apply salt brine, pre-treat our roads, this will be a new tank and spray system, but we'll mount this on one of our old chassis. The truck we have right now is a 1999, and it's got over 13,000 hours on it. It's a tired truck. But one thing is that to put a brand new chassis on this, it's a lot of money to put in this. So when we can take a truck that's out of our plow fleet, when we replace it, we can strip everything down and use that chassis to mount this system on. There's still life in there, and this unit's not out every single day. And we also use this on our construction projects for water, when we do our construction projects too. So this truck does get a lot of hours when we, on our state system, for pre-letting for. So basically, this is going to be just the tank and spray system that'll be mounted on one of our old chassis. Next is your standard wood chipper. Typically, when we have storm events, these chippers go out. Also during the fall, if we're not plowing snow, that's when we do a lot of our tree removal and brush cutting. And this piece of equipment is used just about every day that we're not plowing snow. This will be replacing our old one that's a 2003. And like I said, these get a lot of hours on them, and in bad conditions too in that salt. So these are one of the pieces of equipment that that we use every day, and we just want to replace that old unit. Next. We talked last year. We talked about a lot of our county roads that we changed from a rural section road to a urban. We put, instead of having the open ditches, we put 4-lane or 2-lane curb and gutter concrete. So over the last 20 years, a lot of our roads, you'll see a lot of concrete out there. You're starting to see distressed pavement out there. We never had an official program to replace any of that. We usually would in kind where we could, fit these in, or we'd put them in with, knock the panel out and put asphalt in. Last year, we were able to come to the board and get $300,000 to start a program with that. So this year, we're looking for next year. I mean, we did a lot of concrete patching, and in order to how much work we can keep up with, so it's an additional $175,000 from last year. So whatever's left over out of that, I think we were around that $250,000 that we spent, and with that additional $175,000, that should cover our crews for that work. Is about all we can handle for the year. We have a lot of state concrete work that's going to come in next year too. So if we figure that we could cut that down, instead of asking for that $300,000 and not using it all, that we'd try to find that happy medium where we can keep our crews in with what work we can handle. Any questions?
Ahead of me, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I keep wondering, with things that get tossed into the landfill, that we say has a forever life and will never rot and never go away, why don't we fill roads with those things and then cover over them? They wouldn't collect water, they wouldn't freeze, they're never gonna die, and then we could put them to use. I'm only halfway kidding, but really, why do we keep putting the same stuff on roads that then fills up with water, freezes, and then cracks? All right, moving on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking for clarification on one item. On page, let's see, 467 of our budget books, you have the item for the winter equipment for trucks, quantity 5. But that page looks like it's just a copy and paste of the previous 5-yard dump trucks, quantity 2, and that amount in that box is 314 versus the amount on the spreadsheet on page 456 indicates $925,000 as opposed to 314. So I assume that 925 is the correct number.
So the 314 is the 2 5-yard
Okay.
trucks.
Yep, but that's the same on page 466 and 467.
467 is just the latest.
Right, but if you look up
Oh,
here,
I know, yeah, I saw that part, yeah.
and the description of the project is also
And which page
highway
is that?
department. Page 467, winter equipment for truck quantity 5.
Okay, and which line?
The dollar amount, the description of the project, everything is the same as the page before,
Except the picture.
except for the picture. So that's a nice touch anyway.
Oh,
But according to the CIP, the actual amount for that project would be closer to $925,000.
correct. Yeah, I don't. The one I have, yeah, has the
which-
correct amount, so I don't know. Yeah, that's just, we'll have to make a correction with that.
Okay.
Said the one I printed off has the correct amount, so I don't know if it's just this that
Can
was
you
wrong.
tell us again what the right numbers are between 466 and 467?
466 is right, 467 is 925.
Yes, so
Okay. Got
the,
it.
okay, good,
But the spreadsheet is accurate.
correct.
Okay.
Correct, yes. Sorry about that.
Chair. Bob, I've got the resolutions, and I took a look at the resolutions before. There are some numbers here that don't seem to match up, as Mr. Rankin seems to think. Some of the numbers don't seem to match up, as Mr. Rankin seems to think. Number 8 on the first resolution, please. Number 8 on the first resolution, which is 49/10/2024, does say 925 for 5 winter equipment trucks. They're not with all the equipment on it, right? You're going to use the equipment in the yard or whatever and put on it. Is that correct?
So the truck chassis
Right,
were already purchased, and this is just gonna be the winter equipment, the box, the plows, the sanders, the wings,
all right.
but that's for five trucks.
And that's
that
925.
925.
That's 925.
Yes.
There are some other issues with like 19, solid waste engine generator, number 3, replacement. You see that?
That's solid waste, though.
Okay.
Yep.
That number was wrong. There was 120, it's now 1,200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had several on here that have been purchased in advance on a different resolution. I was questioning earlier with Paul. I think Some of these have been corrected,
Okay.
but for the most part, you have everything from your list on this resolution. We just want to make sure that the numbers are right,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Paul? Excuse me, Paul? Yeah, I'm asking.
He wants to make sure his numbers are right. This isn't a resolution. This
The
isn't a
resolution 49-10-2024, would you please take a look at it again?
Is that highways?
That's highway, all of it is highways to start with. It does roll into solid waste.
It's not a resolution anyways. It's a CIP.
Morris Cox, board member, 2 minutes. Notes, private. Format. Previous item. Next item.
I get the-
Agendas. Minutes. Notes. Media.
Thank you. Here's where I'm at.
I'm just curious, I've lost the process. Where are we right now in the process?
CIP under highways.
Right, but
He's asking a question to make sure that a figure is right. Paul.
I can't hear you, so I don't.
These are all of the numbers by rank on
This is what we talked about before. If you had questions on some of these, to go ahead and check them out ahead of time. Would have saved a lot of time for everyone. Excuse me. All right.
On the resolution that Supervisor Farah gave me, it appears we're missing the $200,000 for the wood chipper.
wood chipper, right.
Yes.
That was the only thing that was
So,
missing,
go talk to
other
the
than
person
checking on all the numbers,
maybe I'll
make
keep
sure the numbers come out right.
for now.
Okay, not seeing any other ones? We thank you.
Thank you.
Next is parks.
All right. I'm back. I did a wardrobe change. It's getting a little cool in here. All right, there we go. All right, so for parks, I'm going to go through each project one by one, like the other departments did. The first one we have is Butamore boat landing improvements. This project is a 2-year project. Obviously, we're only looking to approve 2025 at this time, but we're looking to do engineering in 2025. So we want to go out for bid for proposals for engineers. The engineer, the goal would be, so this is very similar to, for those of you that were here when we approved the Grunman boat landing and we expanded parking. We're looking to go for a Wisconsin DNR grant. You'll see that on the sheet under outside funding, the $729,000 during the construction phase of the project. And in order to go for that grant like we did a couple years ago, it does have to be submitted by June 1st. And it has to have essentially a full bid package. So we have to design it essentially to 90% to 100% type completion. So we'd like to get started on that engineering right away in January. Basically, the goal of this project, as it shows on the map, the one on the picture on the left side shows, if we go to the next, perfect. The picture on the left side, you'll see some vacant area under the parking there. The Butamore boat landing is very popular. It's one of the few public boat landings on Butamore, especially on the south end. And so the 36 stall parking lot is deficient during plenty of the busy times throughout the season. So the goal is, with the picture on the right, is to actually, yeah, you're right, is to install another parking lot, doubling the size of the parking, another 36 stalls, install a bathroom between, right now we use a porta potty, basically installing a running water bathroom like we did out Grumman. There's actually a sewer line that runs right under there, so we don't have to put in a holding tank this time. And then also improving the roadways around and dredging. This is a lot of our landings are very shallow, and you'll see over the next couple of years as we plan for future projects for the boat landings is dredging the area as well. So basically removing the material within the landing area just out to the lake. So that way there's better access. There's a few other items in here like a kayak launch and updating site lighting, of course, when we update the parking lot as well. So then, and this, just one note on the DNR grant, it is very favorable in the sense, I mean, there's no guarantees, of course, it depends on the projects next year and who we're competing against, but it would score very similarly to Grumman, and if you recall, we did get full funding for that project, so hopefully it's a quiet year again for boat landings next year. And the next one is, on the same note, is we're requesting, once again, 2 years. We typically would try to request 1 year for engineering with construction the year after. So that way when we come back to you, next year to request the funding for the construction, that we have a more accurate number. Right now, the $500,000 is a rough estimate in talking to facilities that does similar projects and talking to contractors, but we need an engineer to come in and take a look at this. So the covered arena repairs, this was actually discussed my first year, about 2021, but we said we were going to table this for a future year. We got some other improvements done over at the expo in terms of paving around some of the barns. But the covered arena has a lot of rust on the steel. It's not at this point where it's at any point of failure, but we want to plan ahead. Maintenance-wise, let it last another 30 years is about how old it is now, 25, 30 more years. So we want to sandblast the steel, we want to paint it. The big thing that we need a little bit of design and engineer help is the insulation on the top or on the inside needs to be replaced. And we want to find a durable insulation that can be protected against, or a durable product, whether it's encapsulating the insulation or it's putting a new type of insulation, so that way birds and wildlife and that type of thing, it did last 25 years, but we want it to last, longer than that when we replace it. So that's where we need an expert to come in and kind of look at different options and what the best option would be going forward for that project. So next year would be the engineering for $50,000 is what we're requesting. So then the next project, I know this was actually brought up earlier in the conversation, so I can explain a little bit more. I kind of mentioned in my budget how some of our accomplishments were essentially completing all of our projects. This is the one, it would be complete if the bid didn't come in too high over budget. We only received one bidder. We spoke with the bidders. So we had about 5 to 10 people or general contractors at the pre-bid meetings, and it was just a matter of scheduling and how busy everyone was. We do have a reputable contractor who's worked with facilities on many projects before. So they did draft us a letter that they would hold their bid until after this was approved or not, so that their price is held. And so with the additional funding, we'd be able to accomplish and complete shelters 1 and 2 in spring of next year. So basically, for the opening of the summer season, we would have the shelters. And just as a recap, because this was approved last year before some people here with the board were on the board. Basically, it is doing the work in Shelter 1 to remodel them. The bones of them are in really, really good shape, so we want them to last another 20, 30 years. We redid the parking lots around them. We're looking with the Spirit funds of improvements around the park, and this is purely a maintenance thing and an accessibility. So the bathrooms right now are not ADA compliant. We'd be adding automatic timer locks to them, making the doors wider so wheelchairs can make it through. The locks coming down so that way you can't lock yourself in the bathroom. Basically coming up to code. Also taking out all the asphalt that's run down, replacing it with concrete, and doing painting. Once it's sandblasting painting, you'll notice a lot of our projects are very much maintenance related. Yes, Butamore, we're expanding, but this one is another maintenance related project, so that way those shelters, these are the 2 shelters with kitchens in the community park. So these are rented every single weekend in the summer, typically multiple times a week, Saturday and Sunday. And so this would be the additional funds to complete those projects and be able to move forward. We don't have to go back out to bid. We thought about, kind of like Director Elder was talking about with projects and going back to bid, but based off of when we bid it out, since we don't have substantial changes to the project, we have to wait 6 months to go back out to bid, which would be more around the February, March timeline. And then we're already behind the ball in terms of being the first out the door. And then, of course, wanting to get our project done already by end of May. We wouldn't, I'm confident we wouldn't get lower prices. And then we move on to our 4th project. Last year we were approved the engineering. So now you can see, so my first 2 projects that I spoke about, I'm asking for the engineering for next year. Now you can kind of see this is a project where we asked for the engineering. We were approved the engineering last year, where we've been working all year on design. This project being a larger project, we've been meeting with the county executive office, with the engineers, with electricians, with Life Fest, with county fair. So we've really been trying to meet with a lot of the larger user groups to see if the future of the project, or future of the site of the Sunnyview Expo, and where we want to be. We want this project to, the building was built in 1988, the site was designed or developed in 88. We want it to last another 30, 40, 50 years into the future. And so thinking forward with this project, we have a couple key goals. So first of all, we want to improve stormwater. Both for, what's happening is from the building south, from the main expo building, actually, can we move to next slide, that one, perfect. So from the main expo building, which is this really big white box, so we have some water. So when the site was developed back in 1988, it was flat, it was farmland. And one of the things that was done at the time is, I'm sure it was budget, and some of that, the land was gifted from the county fair when it was moved, and it wasn't raised up. So the building is level with a lot of the rest of the site. So what we want to do with this project, because we do have water that comes in the building, we need to get the water away from the building and get it over to detention pond to be able to treat the water. What you also notice, and the Parks Committee has seen videos and pictures of this, is after a rain event, the water sitting on the southern part, right where the pond is proposed to go here, it sits there for 5, 6, 7 days. Especially if you don't have any sun, it could be even there longer, and you can't program that space, so there's no parking. So a lot of times with some of our larger events, we're parking them across the street, or we're having to figure out other places around the facility. And we want this facility, when we did, so this was part of a 3-phase plan. Since then, phase 3, we've decided it was in 2019 that the master plan was created. This is going to be basically the last of the phases. And we did phase 1, for those of you that don't know, which is right here. We developed those, as you can actually see, because this is old pictures, this was green space. So we had camping there, we had cars there, and when it rained, it was plan B. You had to figure out where to put things. So now, we've had 2 or 3 events since that was already done where we don't have to worry about it during the rain. They can park there, they can camp there, we have electrical pedestals there. So our promoters know that our facility is a lot more reliable. And when we have overflow from the main building, we even park people on that side. So bottom line is, goal number 1 is stormwater. So getting the water away from the building all the way down the south to the brand new pond. And then, just so you know, it goes across the street to our ponds, across the street in the community park, is where it goes after that. And then obviously with the parking areas, getting the water off the parking lot and getting it down to that pond. Pavement condition, if you've been out, I mean, I know there's been, I think it was in May or June, there was the county board tour, and you went out to the expo. You know, you saw the condition of the pavement. Even from a safety standpoint, the pavement does have to be repaved and get redone. And what we're doing is we're taking advantage, which is really goal number 4, so I'll skip ahead a little bit, into future planning. So we're redesigning and reconfiguring the look of the parking lot. Just to give you an idea, right now the current asphalt footprint can fit 760 cars if parked perfectly. This new layout with the asphalt area can fit 770. So it's only 10 extra cars, but we do have the overflow area to the south where number 6 is with the large gravel lot, which could be camping, it can be overflow parking. It provides us a lot of opportunity there. Once again, it also goes back to the maintenance of things. With my staff of 5, we don't have to worry about fixing ruts and where to put people, putting them across the street in the park, rutting up the park, that type of thing. Electrical capacity and site security. So with this, if we're going to be tearing up the parking lot, putting in brand new lighting, LED lighting, putting in a few security cameras, site security. And then, like I mentioned, just with the future planning, going back to that with goal 4, is what you'll notice too around on the design is there's a lot of gates, so that way we can close off certain sections of the site. As I mentioned earlier, our expo manager, Rick Helms, since he's taken over in his role, we've gone from $200,000 to $290,000 in revenue, and a lot of that is because we have multiple events at the same time. We're able to have an event in the expo, while event at the horse arena, and we've even had someone in the stadium, so 3 events at the same time. And the goal is with this is to further that, to be able to, so promoters can gate off their areas, have parking just for their areas, and be able to program their areas without worrying, you know, that another event, because they do step on each other's toes occasionally, and it works out, but this definitely helps with that. And then along the road, last thing I want to just point out, along the road, each gate, we have 4 gates. We also have issues with ingress, egress, and number 1, the main drive is going to be about double the length, so it's going to have a lot more standing area. And then obviously the roundabout's going to allow people to move through it much quicker. And at each gate, we're going to have a digital sign that basically people can customize to entrance only, exit only. It can say the event name on it. There's basically going to be a scrolling, nothing fancy. Gate 2 will have a little new entrance sign that would be LED, but the other 3 gates would basically have the ability to program. So that way you can really, when people are in Y, they know to go enter here or exit there. Or if there's 2 events going on at the same time, horse event, enter here, gun show, enter here, that type of thing. I think I covered, for the most part, everything of this project. Like I mentioned, we've been working with a lot of other of our promoters that utilize the site, and I would take any questions on any of these 4 projects.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the presentation here. The changes to the boat landing, they're going to add a bathroom, and the other changes that you have in the capital, are there corresponding impacts to your operating budget that we should be aware of?
So our rangers regularly, especially now that we have the Ventec pay stations, there's a lot more monitoring and a lot more ability. In fact, even with the new ordinance adoption, there's even, we may have a ranger hang out at a landing for 10, 15 minutes while people are launching, just to kind of, monitor some of that. Same thing there. They're ready at the site, so cleaning the bathroom. They're already checking the portable toilet, and if there's ever issues, the portable toilet gets flipped over. It's really messy. We have to call a company, pay them, and then they're coming out to fix it. So overall, there'll be some operational increases, but the boat landing fund being on its own, I'm confident can take on those, and the users are going to see that benefit by having that running water bathroom and by having that additional parking. They don't have to park out on the road, some of those, and dredging, they don't have to. So I think overall, their fees, they'll feel still confident.
Okay, so did you say the rangers are going to be the ones cleaning the bathrooms?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And when you're talking then about the added fee, or the cost, it is not adding new rangers or anything like that. It's just an allocation of their time to a new task.
Correct. And sure, there'll be additional toilet paper.
Sure.
But we have, in all our new bathrooms, done hand dryers and that type of thing. So really, that would be the one consumable. There'll be extra and maybe a little bit extra toilet bowl cleaner.
Okay.
But yeah, overall, minimal.
Okay, perfect. We'll get rid of the county board paper, and then we can talk about minimizing toilet
All right.
paper at the boat launch. Thank you.
Supervisor O'Brien.
Thank you. Yeah, regarding the boat landing at Butamore Boat Landing, on the image that you have there, it looks like there's like area 12. It's like it's got a number on, like 12, and then 13 kind of extends like out into the lake. To be clear, is that where the dredging will be?
So 13 is the dredging. I'm just going to talk really loud. Would go up to kind of follow the curvature of the lake, and it would be everything to the south of that inside the landing area would get dredged. And then number 12 that you're looking at is some sort of kayak launch accommodation, whether it's in that location or a different location.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Briss, the shelters, when you started explaining it, it looked like you were going to get a full repair of shelters 1 and 2, but I didn't hear anything about shelter number 4. It's 4 and repairs. And the number that you have on the resolution is 125,000. Is that just for engineering, or is the 250,000 that was approved on 3/15/01/2024 approved for the engineering as well?
No, so this project was, we only had some light engineering to help to put together some specs. We spent about 5,000 on engineering. The rest has been done in-house. The 250,000 was for construction, and the 125,000 additional would be for construction to meet that bid. To answer your first question, this would no longer include Shelter 4.
What happened to the repairs on shelter 4, sir?
So Shelter 4 we had as an alternate bid because we were a little concerned about the bid price or the price of the shelters, as we had the architect help us put together some of the specs. And so we did do that as an alternate bid, which essentially means you have your main bid and then you have a separate bid, so you could still accept the main bid without the alternate. And so that would no longer, that'll have to be a future, and we've talked to staff in-house about potentially doing some repairs. The reason we didn't ask for that additional funding, which is about another 170,000, is because the type of repairs that were going to be done would not have done anything to the ADA compliance. So we felt that shelters 1 and 2 need to get done, especially because what we're doing to make them more compliant and being our most used shelters.
Okay. You explained that Butamore Boat Landing is going to be basic engineering for the 145, okay? And the Expo covered arena repair, that's basic engineering as well for 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The Expo West drainage parking lot and improvements,
Mm-hmm.
that came in a resolution 3/15/01/2024 for $5,380,470 and was approved.
The 5 million wasn't approved. I believe the resolution 315012024, without having that in front of me, was just for the engineering. That was the resolution approved last year during the budget process, or the capital improvement process for that project. I don't have that. I'm assuming.
Was the approval for 443,254 at the time?
Correct. That's all it was approving at the time, not the 5 million.
Okay. So then, are you taking any of that money for engineering, or is that engineering already been produced?
The engineering's already been approved, and we're actually spending it currently to design the project.
Thank you. That's all I have. Adam? No.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple questions on page 481, which is the schematic for the Parks Expo West drainage parking lot. So, would you mind throwing that up on the screen?
The last, I think it's the last slide. Oh,
481. Oh, you lost your,
that one?
no, they just, perfect.
Okay.
So my question is, I'm going to try this here. This might fail. Here again, please. Okay. So right here, this is currently green space, correct?
So you can kind of see, this is the line of the current parking lot, so parking this way. So this is green space. There is some, you can actually see the outline here, of some gravel here. So then this is what's green space right now.
And are you moving the main entrance to over here? Because it looks like this is connected here, but it's not with this roundabout or whatever that.
So
curve
this
is.
roundabout connects to here.
It
up
does.
Here and here. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see here, but it does connect here.
Okay.
So in theory, so if someone was renting the expo and they had people parking in the main parking lot, they could, in theory, have people enter here and then exit here, or vice versa. I know a lot of people that charge for their entrance by car probably will actually have people stage here because it's a longer staging area. So it's kind of however the promoter wants to use it, which makes it a lot more flexible.
And then what is your proposed timeline what is your proposed timeline in this project?
Thank you for asking that, because I didn't bring that up. So if this project were to be approved, we already have the engineers on board, and all the engineering that was approved last year is through construction. Obviously, we wouldn't spend the portion of construction if it wasn't approved. It would go out to bid in January, and then it would start, this has been a big topic of conversation because we have so many events, and we want to make sure that we disrupt them the least possible. So we would start after County Fair in August, which would be nice because we'd be one of the first out the door. We'd be towards the end of the year already, so we'd be filling some good slots in contractor schedules. And then we'd want to finish by Life Fest of the next year, which is July. So basically August to July, about a year timeline to get it done.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just ask a question on the Butamore boat landing. If you could possibly put that slide up, or if anybody's got their book out, area number 6. As long as this is in the engineering stage, I would so strongly encourage you to consider a drive-through there. You would not be creating traffic for the restrooms or anything. Any walleye fisherman will tell you that bass fishermen don't know how to back up a trailer. So if there was at least one part of the parking lot, it is the farthest away from the boat launch. It wouldn't be the first to get used, but for the person that has struggles to back up, it would only take a 10-foot strip of blacktop, and I think the traffic flow and everything would work perfect, and I believe there's a significant amount of people out there that would walk the extra 100 feet so that they could park in a spot where they could literally drive through instead of have to back up and take out the other guy's taillights.
That's a very good point. 2 things to note. So this is a 2021 master plan. So it'll have to happen quickly because we'll have the idea of having full plan sets before the DNR grant process. But we are planning on doing a public feedback in hopefully early 2025 to go over this master plan, make sure there's not tweaks like that and good suggestions. The only other thing to consider as we go through those meetings is, as of right now, it's hard to see, but there's dotted lines down here for a future parking lot, 1 lane pull through if we ever need one more set, essentially 18 more stalls. So we'd have to balance, potential something like that versus future expansion of 18 stalls. So it's things we'll definitely have to look at, but a great suggestion.
Thank you.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 questions. Let's deal with the boat landing first. Do you have your permits from the DNR to do the dredging?
So just like we did with Grunman, when we start the engineer, we get the engineer on board, that'll be part of their scope of work. And because you do have to have permits submitted by the time you submit for that grant with the DNR. So permits do have to be in process. They like them to be in hand, but last time, like with Grunman, they were in process.
Okay, and then back to the Expo Center. If I understood you correctly, you're adding more parking area over what is currently grass, is that correct?
Yes.
And that being the case, how much do you anticipate the stormwater fees will increase?
And that is why we're building the on-site pond as well to treat on-site. That is definitely something I need the engineer to look into to see what the additional fee, but because we are building the pond on site, we will get credit for that.
Yeah, that's somewhat of a mitigation, but not
Right.
total.
Correct.
So,
Just like with the East Campus as well,
Yeah.
they went up nominal compared to the benefit of what we ended up having, but we built actually the second pond all the way to the east because we wanted to anticipate getting more credits.
good, thank you.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the Expo Center, Adam, parking lot, the paved area, did you consider angled parking?
So I know the engineer, we worked with the engineer on this. The best to get the most parking stalls was this configuration in terms of up and down, because that was the awkward part of how it is currently, how it's angled parking, or you mean angled parking down the row? Sorry,
Well,
I thought you meant angled to the building.
Angled parking, my thought is, wouldn't that improve traffic flow? Because let's say you had a big event there and everyone bailed out at once. Wouldn't it be more efficient if you had angled parking to send traffic one way and then traffic the other way, exiting the parking lot? Just a thought.
Yeah, and it's not something, we would lose a few parking stalls for sure when you go angled, but it's something that Rick, our expo manager, myself, and the engineer would need to look at and see how much would we lose. I understand where you're going with the flow. There's some good thought there.
That's all, thanks.
Okay, that's all we have, so I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Sheriff. All right, we have. We have one project. It is a $225,000 jail camera and server project. Be adding 39 cameras to the jail. We've identified areas within the jail that we cannot see and monitor from our master control, as well as adding cameras to our medical cells. And I don't want to alarm you, but I talked about the inmates that are medically fragile. We will be adding 10 cameras, one to each of those medical areas, as well as up in our receiving area, the booking area. We have had 4 inmates die in the last 2 years. Now, 2 of those inmates actually died while in our facility. 2 of the other ones died when they went to the hospital. 3 are considered in-custody deaths. Now, again, this is with 24-hour medical care. This is with emergency room visits. This is with immediate intervention by us. But we are also using another technology which uses radar. It will monitor the heartbeat and respiration of individual cells. So we're putting those in those 10 cells, and it will send an alarm when the respirations go below a certain amount. It is something that's being used in jails throughout the U.S. It's now just starting to catch on. We did send somebody down and spoke to a jail administrator in Kentucky, and they are impressed with what they are receiving for a product. That is in our regular budget, which was in one of, in that regular budget that we talked about earlier. It's just in the line item piece of it. Pending any questions. Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, are there any concerns about privacy, dignity, or HIPAA putting cameras in exam rooms?
They're not exam rooms, excuse me, they're actual cells. So they're living areas.
Didn't you say medical?
Well, not medical in the sense that it's a medical bed or any of those
Oh.
things. It's just an area where we put people who are medically vulnerable and have issues that could be life-threatening. And like I had said before, we have a number of people right now. The number of visits or number of fire rescue calls that we have in our jail is increased significantly.
Okay, thank you.
See no other questions, so I thank you. Solid waste.
Okay, we have 5 projects on the CIP this year. The first one is the Snell Road landfill office renovation. This is a renovation for a meeting room and bathroom. There are 2 bathrooms currently in the facility. The facility itself is, I believe, was built in the 80s, and the interior is not up to par. We have 3 personnel who have offices in this building. And the biggest concern is there's no other running water or sewer on site. So we feel that this project is a worthwhile project moving into next couple of years. Next one on the list is an engine generator number 3 replacement. This is an engine that's located down at our Snell Road landfill. It is part of our landfill gas to energy program for beneficial use of our landfill gas. This will give us an option to replace the oversized engine that is at the end of the useful life. Again, this is the ability to make revenues and put power back out onto the grid rather than flaring the gas that's produced. And as of note, as Supervisor Cox had pointed out, the amount on this is $1,200,000, and it is not correct on the resolution, so that would have to be considered for a correction. Third one on the list is a mini excavator. This will replace a 23-year-old piece of equipment that is at the end of its useful life. It will help us offset contractor costs down the road as we continue to perform closed landfill maintenance. The closed landfill maintenance that we have to do, or that we hire a contractor to do, are line repairs, regrading, sags and ponds, and maintaining vegetative growth on our landfill cells. All of those activities are required by the state of Wisconsin DNR for landfill maintenance. I believe that one was also incorrect on the resolution. There was $250,000 on the resolution. We only need $120,000 for that one. Correct. Yep. The next one up is the transfer station exhaust system replacement. Per our plan of operation with the DNR, we have to run a ventilation system within our transfer station to control dust and noxious odors and hazardous gas buildup. The system that is currently in place is original to the building, and it's at the end of its useful life. It's mechanically not dependable at this point. And the last one on the list is backup power generator for our solid waste administrative office and transfer station. We do have a 30-year-old generator at our office that is in place to power the scale. However, this spring we had a significant power outage that lasted 12 hours, and we were in the middle of a board meeting when the power went out. The generator ran for about 25 minutes and overheated and is non-repairable, so we had to shut down completely. That means we had to physically shut our gates, so we had to leave our overhead doors open in the middle of wintertime and we were not able to ship any material out of our transfer station. If the power had been off for more than 24 hours, we would have been non-compliant with the DNR. We do have to move waste within 24 hours. We do have several municipal contracts that we serve, so we do have our municipalities, about 90% of the population depends on our services and our facility for waste and recycling handling. We do feel we're an essential service for our communities, and this is why the request for generator power at our landfill office would be available to operate our scale system and house offices for our staff. And then a generator over at the transfer station to allow us to operate our compactors that we have to load to push the trash into the semi-trailers. It also would help us operate our overhead doors, which helps control vermin and odors over the long term. Questions?
Supervisor Hancock, Coke.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for this information about, I used to work on landfills doing methane gas recovery, so I'm very interested in the whole, how long do you think it's actually going to be producing enough gas for you to have to, for it to be, we know it's probably no longer profitable. And are both landfills are producing gas. I hope that the committee or the board is looking at what the diminishing returns graphs look like and what the total pollutants graphs look like. I would be very interested in having that brought back to the board at some time in the near future so we can understand what we can continue to expect out of that.
Sure.
Thank
Understood.
you very much.
Supervisor Nelson.
Just like to point out that the capital funds from the solid waste is asking for would come out of the solid waste reserve fund, so not out of the general fund, if I understand it correctly.
That is correct, the solid waste fund.
Not seeing any other questions, I thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll okay. Sure. Sure. Ethan has something he's going to pass out and explain it to you. Or explain it to you and then pass it out, I guess.
As I'm explaining it, I will pass it out. So these are all online. If you go in your board portal, you'll see the corrected documents. We used Civic Clerk to its fullest potential today, and we're at real-time changing documents, so you should see everything uploaded now. The first step after we do the resolution is the finance director's air report per county board rules. Part of that report you'll see is the levy was not correct on one of the pages. What that did is it made the levy not correct in the resolution. We've tied that now to the apportionment table and the corrected table in the air report. So if you flip to the appendixes, you'll see the apportionment table, and in the air report, so you'll see the debt levy is number 1 is now corrected to 9251480. That's in the air report. You'll see the library levy is corrected. That's in the apportionment table. And then you'll see the rest of the sum is corrected to tie to the air report. So we're not changing or making amendments. We're just making sure the air report is reflected in the actual resolution and passing you out better documents that have that. That's Resolution 48. The chairman will take a motion on that and a second, and we just hope you take the one that we're handing out. Air report, then the 7 amendments. On number 49, as Supervisor Cox pointed out, there were some things missing that didn't tie to the CIP page. There were the 19 and 20, which we noticed earlier this week were solid waste of $1.2 million for Project 19 and $120,000 for Project 20. The highway wood chipper was skipped. We added that as Project 23. And then the increased funding, which is on the bottom of that page, was also inadvertently skipped for a total of 124,100. We were calling that project 24. Supervisor Binder is intending to make a motion on a highway shop truck washing and feasibility study. That we had it in Civic Clerk anticipating it. It's an italicized. You have to adopt that for that to be in place. You have a memo from the supervisor on his rationale. So he at that time will make a plain language motion to add project 25, not 23, Supervisor. Okay, so those are the two changes. They're all technical in nature to tie to the document books that you've been given. And it should clear up any of the numbers don't match, because we went through all of that. So we'll do Resolution 48, motion second, error report, motion second, majority vote, 7 amendments. And then we'll go to Resolution 49, motion second. Supervisor Binder has a pending amendment he wants to make, and then final passage. So that's where we're at.
Okay, we'll wait till they get them passed out. Sorry. Yes, sir.
Can I request an electronic vote for all of these?
Yes, they will be. Thank you. No, not yet. But we gotta go and make the motion first. We ready? At this time, Resolution 048-10-2024, I adopt the 2025 county budget levy property taxes, approving a 2% increase to the employee compensation plan and establishing the number of employees per department. Seconded by Cox. Huh? Yes. Okay, so now we go into, next, right after that, the Finance Director Budget Error Report pursuant to County Board Rule 4.3.
Hello again. I'm going to not go word by word, so I'm going to try to get this summed up. There are changes. The first page was page 34 was wrong with the tax levy, which Ethan did describe. Then there was a changes on pages 134, 5, and 139 as it relates to the revenue for the miscellaneous and unclassified of 55,157 and of 72,823, which means there is a decreased use of unassigned general fund of 127,980 for the miscellaneous and unclassified. Then there was the airport. Airport in the original request, or when we discussed the budget, as Jim mentioned earlier, he had two vehicles in his initial budget request. One was 60,000, one was 75. The 75 was approved, but the 60 got put in the budget, so that's going to be an additional increase of $15,000, which will then come additionally out of the unassigned general fund. The other ones is solid waste. His revenues have been adjusted an increase of 60, an increase of 35,400, an increase of 70, an additional expense for hauling fee or for regional fees of 38,200, and then another increase in expense for hauling fees of $130,000, ends up with a decrease in their fund balance of 73,600. Then Parkview Health Center, we had some changes. They had a change or approval of an increase in rate, which it gave them an additional $347,000 in revenue. They had a decrease in expense of 16,500, another decrease of expense of 5,000, which then changed their budget and increased their revenue by, or increased their total by 368,550, reducing the amount of their fund balance needing to be applied. Okay, and then the second big page, which was something that was pointed out during the, I believe Supervisor Schellenberg, okay, Schellenberg, pointed out for public health was wrong, and there was a negative number. That was incorrect. It should have been 295. After reviewing that, we also noticed that property lister was wrong, airport was wrong, and Parkview Health Center was wrong, so all of them are going to be changed and put in a new adopted book. Is there any questions? Oh, plus I forgot on page 467 of the capital plan, that is also going to be changed to the 925 instead of the 314.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for making those corrections. I think that the fund balance table makes a lot more sense with how you all were trying to fund things. So I appreciate that. I want to ask. I'm looking at the error report, and I might have misunderstood something, but my understanding was that there was about $600,000 of net new construction levy or increase to the levy limit, and that I thought that was included in this budget, but it looks like the levy's only going up by 75,000. Am I to understand that there is net new construction levy available to take, or am I misreading?
To answer that, I guess my way, there was an increase of levy of 600,000, but that was, I guess, operating levy more so than anything else. And then you have all the other factors that go into it with debt service, with the culvert and the library aid and all of that. When you add all that together, the total levy changed by 75, but the amount we got to use for the operating levy was 600,000.
Gotcha. Okay. So that makes sense. But can we get confirmation that the net new construction has been taken and accounted for in this budget?
Yes.
Okay.
What? They repealed personal property tax and then increased state aid. So there was a bunch of minuses and pluses, but the 600,000, the 1.036% is in the budget.
Okay, so the personal property tax would have been included in the levy, but now it's included as state aid. Okay, thank you very much. A lot of moving parts there.
Supervisor Cox, did you have something, or you just seconded the motion? I know, okay, I just wanted to know your name was still up here, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss you. Is that it? Okay, and now we'll go into our amendments. Oops. Oh, we have to vote on that, I'm sorry. Didn't have you here, so. Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just clarification, Paul. I'm looking at the new 49 that was passed out. Oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. I have the wrong statement here. Thank you. No question.
No questions. So Supervisor Cox.
I know. Thank
We
you.
can't hear you.
Yeah,
We can't hear you.
Thank you. I am looking at Charles.
He's got his right slip.
Did you find the right one to pull? Okay, please announce that. Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion to accept the report that was just given to us. And seconded by Supervisor Burrow. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not here, oops, they want to vote. Okay. We'll be going by machine. They want this all to be done by machine, so. So if you're in favor of it, vote yes. If you're not, vote no. And don't forget to push save. Supervisor Stafford?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Should be good.
Okay. Got everybody now? Supervisor Fari? Did you vote? Did you push save? Attaboy. And that passes 34-1. Okay, now we go into our amendments. Amendment number 1. It's by Parkview Health Center. I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Schellinger to read.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for acceptance of Amendment 1, add employee authority and budget and labor budget category to Parkview Health Center for the purpose of adding 1 social worker medical and 1 therapeutic wellness specialist.
Second.
There were 5 positions that the executive budget removed from Parkview Health Center. 3 of those were vacant. 2 of them had staff members in them. These are those 2 positions, and I just want to share perhaps the all-time record for attendance at a committee meeting was set during Parkview's budget. Supervisor Gabbert can maybe attest to that as witness to the other highly attended committee meetings at airport. But we had a lot of folks from the Parkview community show up and tell us how important these positions were to the quality of life, to the service that's provided to the residents. And so the committee took the opportunity in our budget meeting to vote and voted unanimously to add these back into the budget.
So we do have a motion made and seconded. Supervisor Cox?
I just seconded it. That's all.
He's doing like instructed. Remember we said they should punch in when they do that? Well, we have a motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Supervisor Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little bit confused because Resolution 048 has amendment number 1 and it has amendment number 2. And Kobe Skellinger just did amendment 1. Are we doing both amendments? Because they have the same title and the same number.
They're different. I think if you read them, though, they're different, but
If it's directed to me, I think the answer is Resolution 48 is approving
Yeah,
the.
but you said of 048, you said amendment 1, but I also have an amendment 2 for 048.
I think we'll get to Amendment 2 next.
Yeah, they're
All right,
amendments.
all right. Okay, thank you.
okay.
Take them one at a time.
Not seeing any
last
other
one,
discussion,
he's
we'll
gonna throw
vote
out.
by machine.
Okay.
There we go. Coming up.
If you're in favor of it, vote yes and push save. If you're not, vote no and push save. And amendment number 1, yes. Got 'em all? Supervisor Bender? I thought he said that comes later. Right, it's down later. Just before the final is 25, 40, I don't know how they did the numbers, that's why they were just going by amendments. Is everybody in? Oh, I didn't see it. It passed 33 to 2, you said? Okay. Amendment 2, Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will move for acceptance of Amendment 2, reduce the operating budget category for Parkview Health Center by $200,000, add an employee to Human Resources Department and other budget expenses for the purposes of supporting human resource needs at Parkview Health Center.
Second.
So this is, I want to just take a minute to explain this. There wasn't an earlier version of this that was passed out. I want to make sure everybody's looking at the right one. So it's the one that has the title as I read it with 4 lines. So there are two real main pieces to this. First of all, Parkview, as we heard, is relying more and more on contractual nurses to staff the floor. That costs us a lot of money. And so they're asking for $300,000 of additional money for that purpose. I'm asking to take $200,000 of that out of contractual services for the purpose of hiring more people on our table of organization that we've already budgeted for. And so you'll note in the rationale that really this is a double budget of labor. We're budgeting for staff for 121 residents, but we're also budgeting for contracted nurses to fill in. So I'm asking that this board say, here's a line in the sand. You can have a little more money for the contractual services, but what we really want is to bring more people in-house. And so there's a position, this is starting on lines 20, the be it resolved clause, a position in human resources that would be dedicated to the operations at Parkview. This would help with the recruitment that we heard from both HR and Parkview was a limiting factor in how quickly they could hire people. This person would know the operations of Parkview inside and out. in an analogous way to the way that Human Resources has a dedicated person to the Human Services Department, someone who will be able to recruit for these types of nuanced positions. It will also speed up the hiring process, so it will make people go from that application to interview a lot faster. It will speed up the background check, and we'll have one person dedicated to helping achieve the staffing levels that we need to open neighborhoods. The third resolve clause, starting on line 27, adds a little bit of money to the Parkview budget to do some advertising. And then the last section reserves $196,224 into the Parkview labor budget. The request will be for the administrator to go through the regular process of reclassifying positions, but that 196,000 would be earmarked for the adjustments to nursing staff wages that some of the supervisors have been bringing up. That money would only be usable with the approval of the Personnel and Finance and Parkview Committee. So I appreciate bearing with me through that explanation, and if there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Supervisor Cox, did you have a question?
I just seconded.
Supervisor O'Brien?
Yep, I want to know why are we using the contracted employees in the first place? There's a reason why, and that's what I want to know. I mean, it seems like a slam dunk, but we haven't done it, so why not?
Yeah, so I'll attempt to answer this as best I can. Administrator Gazka Parrish went home. So I think what's happened a lot in the healthcare world is nurses have had the opportunity in the last 4 or 5 years to take incentive bonuses, hiring bonuses, and things like that. And so a lot of healthcare providers have find themselves short-staffed from time to time. And so contracted nurses are used to fill in the gaps. My wife works at a hospital. They occasionally will have to bring people on contracts. I think it's kind of becoming somewhat normative to fill in those minimum staffing requirements. I think what's happened at Parkview, though, is that it's just been too difficult. We haven't done some of the HR, some of the hiring processes. I've talked a lot the last day or two about the online applications and things like that. Those are becoming barriers that are forcing us to rely more and more on contracted nurses. And I think, this is my opinion, that it's just become easier to hire more contracted nurses than to do the harder work of figuring out which recruitment events we need to be at, or where to put, where to dedicate the resources to hiring faster.
Yeah, I just think that it's like, the reason why what I'm hearing is that it's too hard to hire people. So that's why we have temps. And if it's too hard, I feel like it ought to have been done earlier, and I don't think that simply allocating money to that department they'll just fix the problem. The problem still exists, that it's hard. I will not vote for this.
Supervisor Nussbaum?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering why it wasn't budgeted this way.
That would be a question for the executive or the administrator. I'm attempting to fix it in a more sustainable way.
Supervisor Hulber?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like I said before, as a CNA of 13 years in 3 different states, it's very common for nursing homes to have their own HR department, which is why I thought it was odd that we didn't here. The HR department is going to be dedicated to finding those CNAs that are so hard to find for our our HR department in the county. Like Supervisor Schellinger said, it's that person being dedicated to go out and find these things and be more specifically looking for just CNAs and not the rest of the county as well is going to bring in the CNAs so that we can cut down on these costs for hiring these contractors. The reason the contractors are there is because we have a state and a federal minimum. If you have a certain amount of residents, you have to have a certain amount of staff. You have to. You will stop receiving federal funding, you'll stop receiving accreditations and stuff like that. You'll also get reported, you'll start losing licenses if you're not doing things properly. So it is necessary to have these contractors when you don't have staff, but it's also necessary to take the steps to properly find the staff and the solutions to getting around why the staff isn't staying. This is a one-part solution that we're working on, getting those staff paid, found, hired, and paid better so that they stay in our county and in our facilities so that we don't have to spend this much money on contract workers. Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I think our hiring process takes too long. Takes 3 to 4 weeks to get everybody hired here. Human Services has somebody that strictly works for their staff. We need that at Parkview. When somebody turns an application in, they have to follow up on it, they have to get them hired in a timely manner, maybe 7 days. And we have to pay a compatible wage. If we're paying $18.35 and Outagamie's paying $19.37, why would you work for us? I mean, I'm gonna go where I get the most money. It's already a low-paying job, but if I can get an extra $2,000 for doing the same job, where would you go? And if you go to the hospital, they pay over $20 for a CNA, probably closer to 21. They have to have them. It doesn't matter what the cost. When you come out of surgery, they have to have somebody there to take care of you. They're not going to shut down part of the hospital because they don't have any CNAs. If they got to pay them a little more, they will. So it's something we need to do. We have a 165-bed nursing home. For the last 2 years, stayed right around 100 residents. I had a woman call me up. She was crying. She goes, I want to, get out of the hospital, but there's not a nursing home for me to go to. And I tried to explain to her, we have no staff. If we could take you, we would. It's just something that, you have to be competitive if you want to hire in today's market. We raised the sheriff's department, they got deputies. We raised the pay at the highway department, they're pretty much filled up. We have to do the same with Parkview. If you had an apartment building with 165 units and you ran it at 100, you'd be bankrupt in no time when you had 65 units sitting empty.
Supervisor Burrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few things of note. Number one, we're talking $564,000 for temporary employees and $11.3 million for permanent employees. My concern with this is we're dictating to the operating manager how to run the business. If they can't find permanent, we have a possibility that the care is going to go down because there's not enough contract employees that can be funded. I would suggest that this be pushed back to the committee that oversees Parkview. We talked about recruiting, we talked about website, we talked about a number of things. Challenge them and challenge the administration who runs it to do it. Don't dictate it through budget. Thank you.
Supervisor Hens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm aware that the Parkview Committee gets regular updates as far as staffing goes. I would offer a friendly amendment to this, that we would get a 6-month update from someone on the Parkview Committee on how this position is working out and if it is actually helping or not, to give us a chance to basically see if it's working and take another kick at it if we wanted to get rid of it. I would offer that as a friendly.
Yes, that's fine. The committee does get a report every month on staffing that is included in the packet. So certainly, if this is passed, I can take ownership of providing a report 6 months after the person is hired. But also in the intermediate time, if anybody ever wants to follow along with the top lines of how many open positions and things like that, that is always available on a month-to-month basis.
Supervisor Mako.
I just wanted to make sure I'm getting this straight. Where you want to take $200,000 out of the contracting agency budget and put $300,000 into permanent employees. Is that what we're trying to do here? Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Challenger, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to note, and I should have said this in the beginning, this is supported by Human Resources, by the Parkview Administrator, by the Parkview Finance Director. I think the committee had a pretty reasonable discussion about the framework. The framework here, I would certainly encourage anyone on the committee to chime in if I am if this misrepresents the direction of that discussion. But I do believe this has pretty good buy-in from the administrator, the finance director at whatever Doug's title is at Parkview, as well as Human Resources and the committee. Thank you.
Supervisor Burrow, second time.
Thank you. Given this is a strategic issue, we've gone through a 6-month budgeting process. I found it kind of curious that the Parkview administration finds this very interesting and want to support it. They should have put it in the budget. And if they're really behind it, why isn't it there? We've gone through months process. The other thing regarding the friendly amendment, we just mentioned that we would hire them in 6 months, evaluate whether it's effective. Are we prepared to let them go if it's not working? That's what's implied by that. So again, those are concerns I wanted to express. Thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Burrow just sort of talked about it. On the friendly amendment, does that require that we put language in there? I would, since we are amending, or excuse me, since a friendly amendment was suggested and seems to be accepted by one of the sponsors, could we please put the language in?
I'd like to ask Corporation Counsel on this friendly amendment. I know there's questions. There's a suggestion, but there was no motion made or seconded, so can it just be a friendly amendment? Being that it was a sponsor, that city would go along with it.
But the whole body should accept the friendly.
Right. That's what I wanted to make sure of. Okay.
My question to Corporation Counsel, or I guess to Supervisor Hinson Schellinger, what is the language of the amendment, please?
Supervisor Hinson.
I believe the request was for a 6-month status report on the position, the position's effectiveness. Is that? So, I guess I don't want to put words into your mouth. Do you want to take it? I got a hot mic, so I can say it. So I guess, in line 37, we might add, be it resolved by the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors that the Parkview Health Center Committee Chair will report back to the county board 6 months after the position is hired and report on the efficacy of hiring at Parkview.
And Supervisor Halber agree to that?
Second. Well, you're not Supervisor
Supervisor
Halber.
Halber isn't on here.
I'm good. Oh.
Does Supervisor Halber agree to your wording?
I'm not sure he's
No,
the authority.
He's not in on it. Supervisor Hintz and Supervisor.
Hintz.
Who made the Hintz? Challenger went along with it. So my question to you is now friendly, because I know this discussion has come up several times. What's a friendly amendment? So does everybody vote on it now, or can it just be a friendly amendment? That's my question to you. Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes.
So then I would submit it to the body and see what,
Okay.
go from there. Let them vote.
Okay. We'll have, the typed up. You've all heard the,
So are we voting on the amendment?
that's what she said. Friendly amendment. That's why I asked her.
We've never done this before.
No.
Well, I would say since both,
Let's not change the rules in the middle.
I understand, since Supervisor Schellinger and Supervisor
Well,
now bring it out.
they were the ones who, they both accepted the friendly amendment to, because they are the ones who presented the amendment, initial amendment.
And who seconded it? I thought you seconded it.
I was the one
He's
who
one.
proposed a friendly, they both accepted it.
So both authors accepted friendly.
Correct, yes.
And that should be sufficient.
Okay, thank you. Oh, we got that right. We don't have to vote on that. I've got some more to call. Supervisor Hanson, did you have anything else? I kind of cut you off there. Okay.
My microphone's live.
Supervisor Cox.
Okay. No, I think the friendly amendment suffices, but I've read the amendment in full as far as amendment number 2 is concerned, and I approve, and I will be voting for it, and I would hope that all the P&F people that are here will be voting for it as well.
Supervisor Gustafson.
No question, thank you very much.
The question has been called. And the second has been made. Question has been called. No, not if, once the question's been called, that puts into it. Sorry. So. All those in favor of the question being called signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Nay. The question is being called.
Now
Now we're voting on it.
the ballroom is,
We're back to Amendment 2, reduce the operating budget category for Parkview Health Center by $200,000.
voting. Everybody's a yes and a say. And a stay.
He's pushing old people off the cliff.
Who is?
You're pushing old people off the cliff.
He's worried about the commercials. You already passed the primary, you're good.
I know.
You just don't want the government spending commercials on you.
Supervisor Wise.
I voted no for that.
That passed 28 to 5 with 2 abstentions.
There you go, Kobe.
Go on.
Oh.
He took the chickens away.
Chicken.
Can't say anything.
Amendment number 3, Supervisor Pacetta.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose a motion to increase the Industrial Development Board grant by $30,000 in the miscellaneous unclassified operating grant payments.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Just a couple of additional points. We have, as part of our strategic plan for the county, community and economic development, and if we're going to put it in our budget, I think it's something we ought to at least put a little additional skin in the game. And there is $170,000 that is part of this program, and every year it gets distributed to the municipalities throughout Winnebago County on a per capita basis. I'm going to look at this through two different lenses. One is as a supervisor, and the other is as a town chairman. There have been a number of meetings of the towns in looking at this particular program and the various eligibility requirements that accrue to it. We all pretty much can imagine, or at least we know, that the various economic development capacities within smaller towns in Winnebago County is a challenge. It's not a challenge for the cities because they pretty much have their own community development and economic development staff, directors, and finances behind it. So when you take that $170,000 and distribute it on a per capita basis, really what it comes down to is a relatively small amount of money for the towns. And for example, in the town of Black Wolf, it's $2,376, somewhere in that range. So you can pretty much tell what it is we have to do. Now, in our particular community, we budget for economic development. We kick in $2,500 a year, and we use that essentially as a match to that per capita. And then in our case, we don't have the capacity for an economic developer or a community developer. We use Go EDC and the chamber as well, and it makes perfect sense. Or if we had the flexibility, and I knew somebody in Clayton or somebody in Amro that they were looking at maybe a particular project down the road, we could very easily hand over some of this money to them as well and assist and kind of come together as municipalities trying to make our communities a little bit better. And that's I guess a huge issue that the towns have been talking about when it comes to this per capita. So we went back and looked at some of the historicals, and as you can see in the document, it's $209,000, I believe it was. And over the years that's continually declined. What I'm proposing here is to bring it back up a little bit more. That will allow the municipalities to get additional dollars so that they can either augment their current economic development capacity, or, and in working with the planning and zoning office with Jerry Bougie, and we did have a meeting last month regarding some of the changes to the policies and procedures on how this money can be spent, and trying to loosen it up and provide a little bit more flexibility to some of the communities that are looking at maybe doing projects, and they can potentially bank some of their per capita so they don't have to necessarily turn around and use it right away. Because let's say, for example, they need to do a study on something, on a particular community facility or a project. Everybody knows studies are going to cost you about $30,000. First of all, if you're getting $2,500 per capita from the IDB, it's going to take you 10 years to be able to afford that study if you're going to use simply that particular amount of money. What we're trying to do here is provide a little bit of help to the local communities, because at the end of the day, you can look at some of the various programs that assist businesses in community development, and it's all about, are you building brick and mortar? Are you hiring staff? Are you expanding? What is it that you're doing? And we lose sight of the fact that one of the huge elements in our economic development continuum is that quality of life aspect. People travel 50 miles to go to work. It doesn't matter, you know, they're not stuck right in a community because that's where their job is located. And we
Your
need.
time is up, Supervisor.
Okay, so I encourage you to vote
You
for
did
it.
a good job.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other ones, we will vote on this by machine. Did you have, were you called in? I didn't see it, but, okay. Supervisor Patterson.
Okay, so this is just a spelling issue here. The item is called the Industrial Development Board, which I think should be abbreviated IDB, but there are two instances where it's abbreviated IBD. I just wanted to point that out. If you look here, on the first paragraph on the second line, it's IBD, and in the second paragraph, third line, it's IBD. That was my only thing, was to just,
Okay.
it probably needs those two little corrections, that's all.
It's IDBs, you're correct. Now we're ready to vote. Yes, you're in favor of it. No, if you're not. Push save.
Twice on that. I did.
We're gonna have more people voting than that should be.
And that passes 33-2. Amendment number 4, Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to introduce amendment number 4, adding $1,793 to the medical examiner's budget, $1,793 to the veteran service budget, and $63.44 to the emergency management budget for labor.
And seconded by Halbert.
Thank you. And just a brief explanation. It looks real simple. Unfortunately, it was a little bit more involved. My absolute thanks to Corporation Counsel and Director Mark Habeck in helping me craft the language. What this does is it brings these positions to more commensurate with the experience that they bring to this county.
Okay, see no call-ins. We'll vote by your machines. Yes, if you're in favor, no if you're not, and then remember to save.
Supervisor Dowling.
That passes 31-4. Amendment number 5, Supervisor Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to propose that we accept budget amendment number 5, eliminating a corrections sergeant, adding a corrections lieutenant, and increasing the sheriff's office labor budget category $2,637.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
A note on this, JPS, this was recommended by the JPS committee on October 7th, 2024.
And I see no questions this time, so we'll vote by machine.
Stay out there.
Supervisor Gustafson.
What's with you?
Yep.
Out there sneaking a peek.
And that passes unanimously.
There you go.
Amendment number 6. We have Supervisor Burrow, Gustafson, Facetto, Patterson, and Conley. We'll call on Supervisor Burrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll introduce this budget amendment number 6, requiring the County Board of Supervisors to act based on the recommendation of the county administration on a Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, and Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB, best practice fund policy, keyword fund policy, by the March 25th County Board meeting. Little background, draw your attention to row 28. Winnebago County holds very numerous fund balances across the enterprise. It's incumbent on this board to pass policies which ensure approved budgeting and accountability. Approved budgeting and accountability. Having fund balances across the enterprise is hard for board members to follow. It encourages inflated budgeting. We need to pass this amendment to put the county on the path to better fund balance management. And just so you know, this amendment was developed with the supervisors listed, but also with extensive discussions with Jamie, Ethan, legal counsel Mary Ann, and Paul Kaiser. So with that, I put that forward.
Second over here.
Seconded by Gustafson.
Nate.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess first I'd like to ask Director Kaiser a question, because I think this implicates you, perhaps, in some work. Is the March timeline one that is suitable to develop these policies in a way that you would feel comfortable with?
My immediate supervisor, Jamie, said that she will work with me and we will get this done by then.
Okay. So lots of cases of Red Bull delivered to your office. Then my other question, so I think what I'm concerned about, I guess, is the last be it resolved clause, that county tax levy transfers may not occur until necessary. I guess if we could maybe understand what would happen if our chairman said, nope, I'm not going to let this go on the agenda. So Director Kaiser prepares some really well thought out policies that are in line with GFOA and GASB best practices, but our chairman, this chairman wouldn't do that. Let's say he's sick, someone else does it. And he says, nope, I'm going to pull this agenda item and I'm not going to let the board consider these. Would that affect the ability for the county to use its tax levy and effectively give our chairman quite a bit of authority?
I'll answer that if you're all looking at me. The chairman has the right to put anything he wants on the agenda.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to amend this by striking lines 20, I think it's 25 and 26. Be it resolved that the 2025 fiscal year county tax levy transfers may not occur until necessary unless required by any statute. Because not that I'm concerned that this chairman is going to abuse his power in that way, but it does seem like it's creating an authority for the chairman that is outsized to what the chairman ought to have.
Ethan would like to say something, and I'll give him the floor to go ahead, being that he's an administrative position.
So the intent of that language has nothing to do with the first be it resolved. It has to do with the order of operations when you subsidize an enterprise fund. So you put tax levy into Parkview. If on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis, they don't need that tax subsidy, you leave it in the general fund until they absolutely need it, so it doesn't grow the Parkview fund. So they're not together. It has to do with the order of operations of when we transfer levy into the particular funds. We kind of do it backwards now. So it's a best practice that won't affect money or anything. It just leaves the levy in the general fund until these other funds absolutely need it, based on the appropriations you approve. And because you shall do this by this, you actually are forcing the chairman's hand, that you as a body are telling the chairman, we have to take this up. But they're not related. That levy language is solely related to when you subsidize a non-general fund, when does the levy move into it? Instead of right away, it'll move when they need it, if that makes sense.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. I don't need to make that motion then. In that case, my question is this needed for the budget, or why aren't we going through a regular committee process to pass a policy?
I will ask Supervisor Burrow to go ahead and explain why he's doing it now.
The vision behind this cuts across all budgets. We saw 5 budgets today that had these funds that they're tapping into. And I'll use the best example. If your daughter or son goes off to college,
Do you give them $5,000 in cash to spend for the entire semester? No. You release it as they need it. That's the intent here. It's to improve accountability and improve better budgeting. So why don't try to get a big budget past you all and then bank the money that I have left, and so I can use it future in a fund. That's what we're trying to get away with. And these practices that are identified up here are best practices across counties in the country. And that's what Jamie and Paul brought forward. That's why we actually changed this amendment to include that. And the intent here is to help us run the county better and more efficiently. That's the intent behind it.
So thank you for that. I'm going to vote against this because this isn't related to the budget. It's not amending the budget in any substantial way. It's a policy that I agree should be enacted. We should have these policies. I was talking to Director Kaiser earlier today about this. But I just don't think that changing policy like this at the budget is the appropriate place for it. Thank you.
Not seeing any other lights?
Mine's on.
Ooh. I don't have any of them here.
Vote for this a minute ago?
Who do you have? Supervisor Wise?
Do I want to vote again? I think I did vote.
Supervisor Wise? I'll start from the bottom up. I apologize.
Put that square up there one more time.
His light is on still.
Hmm?
That comes in.
That's all right. Supervisor Wise?
Can I just shout, oh, there you go, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little offended that we're trying to call some of these people, their daughters going to college on that. Surely they're a lot more responsible than a daughter going to college with $5,000 in her pocket. I'm a little offended about that. Second thing is, I am probably going to vote no on this also for the same reasons that Kobe and Schellinger is going to be doing that. Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Halber? Supervisor Halber, yes.
Sorry, it's very hard to hear. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if I can quite speak for all the newly elected officials here, but for me personally, I don't even know what I'd be agreeing to. This is asking me as a board supervisor to hold myself to 2 different sets of standards that I know nothing about. So I'm going to need more time to consider this and to make sure that these are things that I can fully understand. I'm going to be voting against this.
Supervisor Hintz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask Mary Ann, is this an appropriate place for this resolution, or should it be taken up at a later date?
I think that a report can be asked for and potential action taken on it. I mean, I know this is the budget session, but it implicates the budget, so I think, I mean, essentially what they're saying is to ask for a report. So yes, I think it would be fine.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Gustafson.
Call the question.
Question made. Motion's been made and seconded to call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
The question passed. The question passed. Now,
You what?
we called the question, we voted on the question, it passed.
Right, well, just hold on until we get everybody up here.
Okay. Now we're voting on
Don't
the
get
vote.
excited. All right, those in favor signify by voting yes. Those are not in favor signify by saying no, and don't forget to push save.
It's all for the team. Take one for the team. All green. Yep. All green. Ooh. 1816.
There it is.
And that passed 18-16 and with one abstention. Okay, next is Amendment 7, Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pull that amendment.
Okay, we are done with the amendments at this time.
Julie, delete this. And we gotta go to, go back up.
All the way to the top, right?
To the,
To the,
Huh?
yep, this one.
And then we're on final debate on the budget.
Right.
So we already have the motion to approve. Now we're on final debate.
The one for bid review done now?
Nope, that's for 49, so now you're on final debate on 48.
Final debate now on it?
Yep.
Okay,
So the motions stay the same.
Motion stays the same. Because it's like, we just stacked them with all those amendments, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
The way we
This
did
is
it
what
was
I'm-
way easier than the organizational meeting.
all right, we've gone through all of them now. So, any discussion before we vote on the budget?
That's for
That's
49.
That's 49. We'll get to it. It's 49.
Can I start the vote? Can I start the vote?
Pardon?
Can I start the vote? No.
Yeah.
Amendment 7 was
What are we voting on? Oh, sure. This is the final adoption. This is 48. If you'd like to. Vice Chairman Fari is going to read it in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at Resolution 48. You have the amended document in front of you. Therefore, I will move to approve Resolution 48, 10, 20, 24, adopting the county budget as amended.
Motion made and seconded. That's yours.
You're
No,
on 49.
49.
The next one.
Let's see, you got any lights showing? Okay. So all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Aye.
Oh, we're doing by machines, I'm sorry. We were asked by machines ahead of time, so we'll have to do it by machine. We're doing by machine.
Supervisor Albrecht.
Bring in the resolution, move to approve, Bender moves to amend.
Supervisor Albrecht.
How do you want to do it?
And you'll have to go ahead and you'll bring this in now. And then you'll amend his resolution. Okay. And then we'll have to go back up. And we'll vote on it again.
They got him?
You got this? Yeah. What are you missing?
He's doing it.
Tom, you're aware you're making a correction here, which
Supervisor Bender.
instead of
Can you
saying
vote?
8 million,
Can you vote,
it's gonna read
please?
17,991.
Vote.
That was a screw up. So I'm gonna read this as it is correct.
Yeah.
At that number.
Yeah.
That's 17, right?
17,951.
And that passes 34-1. Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at Resolution 049. I'll move for the approval of Resolution 4910-2024 with a correction. You go to line 37. That number should be, and you might want to write it down, $17,951,398. Am I correct on that, Paul? I got the wrong number. You got another one over here at 18. Okay, I got the wrong number. I'll read it over. The correction would be 18,318,303. That I'm correcting line 37. So we're deleting 8,240,605. We're substituting $18,318,303. They forgot to add the add-ons into that, all that, we corrected that, so that corrects that. Any questions on that? 18, I'll go another way, 18, comma, 318, comma, 303. Correct. Do I have a second?
Supervisor Bender, you had amendment you wanted to bring in?
Bring this in as an amendment.
Yep, I need to make an amendment to add line 25 for 2025 project for a highway shop truck wash feasibility study and design, taking the money out of the 2025 county funding of $100,000.
It's actually line 83.
Does he have?
Got a handout on it.
What'd I do? You got it, right?
Did you?
Oh.
Second.
Motion was made and second for amending with the $100,000 for a wash station in the highway shop. Tom Swan seconded, yes. Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm commenting on Vice Chairman Fari's thing. Somehow we made a $10 million error in the, I mean, going from 8 million to 18 million is a big jump.
Well, the correction was they added in, and I assume you got the correction, number 23, which was the highway chipper. Remember they talked about that? 24, increased funding for the courthouse protection. Another 25 for the ceiling. 24,486 for second chance and the masonry at 16.5. That was that block of 4 or 5
Okay,
different
okay.
groups. And I think that's it. So they're adding in 23, 24, and 25, which is the amendment.
All right, thank you.
Also, there should be another correction that Paul brought to my attention. I don't want to disrupt the amendment, but let's see, on line 38, it reads 9,193,595.
Yeah.
This one, these two should be that, and 9-1.
Oh, okay. All right. With the chair's permission, can I start over?
Yes, you may, being that it has to be read in correctly.
Okay. Let's go back to line 37. Delete 8,246,005 and insert 17,951,398. I'll repeat. 17, 951, 398. We all good with that number? Then you go down to line 38. There it has a number of 9,193,595.
Yeah.
Delete that number. And that will read 18,318,303. $18,318,303. According to the finance director, this should be correct.
Now, before we vote on that, we do have amendment on the floor for a wash station, 2025 county funding of $100,000 for the highway shop truck wash facility and design. And there was a motion made and seconded. Let's see. Do you have anyone on that? Supervisor Hulber.
I'm a little uncertain about this amendment. It's already in the package. It is on line number 83. What are we amending to it?
Supervisor Bender?
I can answer that.
Yeah, it, originally, it was supposed to be an amendment to the capital improvement budget, and that's what I have here. And then when Mary Ann Miller came back, she said I had to basically bring it up and amend it, even though it was in the last proposal. So I don't know which one is right. As long as we get it done correctly, that's all that really matters to me.
All you should do is, what you're voting on is on line 83, not line 25. Line 83 consists of 25 highway shop truck washing feasibility and design study with 2025 county funding of $100,000. Do you agree to that? That's what you want.
Why didn't you write that on there?
So does that have to be an amendment?
That's the amendment,
But
yeah.
it's right in here. You read it, it's right in here.
Listen, put it in there without doing
It was italicized, but I said put it in so people can see it. It was italicized so that Supervisor Bender could read it. But I wanted to show the rest of the county board what you were going to just say verbally. And that's why it's italicized as opposed to the rest of the print, which is not italicized.
Point of order, can you read it one more time? Because there's, with 2025 county funds, it's not in there.
Okay. Highway shop truck washing feasibility and design study with 2025 county funding of $100,000.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
Yeah, that's,
So now do we vote on that amendment or is it in there?
Yes.
Yes, it's in there, or yes, we vote on it?
I'll call for a voice vote, please.
They've asked for all recorded votes.
All right.
So if you're in favor of adding that to the highway department, vote yes. If you're not, vote no, and then push save. This is your amendment now we're voting on. That passes 34-1. Okay, so now we're back on the main motion. We have a motion made and seconded,
As amended,
as amended.
yes.
Have you got Supervisor Hens up?
Yeah. If I might, Mr. Chairman, you're voting on the Resolution 49 as amended and corrected, which I stated.
Right. So if you're in favor of that motion, push yes. If you're not, push no, and push save.
Tom, there's only one motion left, right? Only one motion left?
When you can make.
Supervisor Albrecht,
Supervisor Albrecht?
yeah.
And that's passed 34-1. Before we call for adjournment, I want to thank you all. It's been a long 2 days, but a little better than 2 days, but we got through it. So, again, I thank you, and thank you for your time and your family's time. Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Budget is adjourned.